So have you been?
Well, doing quite all right. Enjoying the beginnings of fall when it's not so hot during the day.
Are you able to ride more in the fall
Oh yeah,
compared to?
when it's too hot, I can't go out and ride because I hate the heat. I'll ride at night or get up at 4 in the morning if I have to avoid the heat in the summer.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's much easier to ride with a scooter than in the summer. So tell me, it has been, pleasure to connect with you and pleasure to get to have you as a customer. So I've become curious about your journey. You are originally from Louisiana, correct?
Right. I was born in Shreveport. My father was in the Air Force and we moved across the South. I even lived in Thailand for almost a year when I was 12 years old.
Oh wow, how was that?
It's interesting to live, and my father wanted to live off base too, so we lived in a small village next to Udo Air Force Base. So
Uh,
it's educational and interesting to live inside of a different culture.
yeah, yeah. And 12 is a tender age, right? You actually absorb a lot more at 12 because you have a lot more open mind. So was
Right.
it kind of explosion of knowledge and wisdom in a different country at 12?
I wasn't old enough to be wise yet, but I did learn that we're all the same. Doesn't matter where we live, we all have the same needs.
Yeah. So walk me through your life from Louisiana to Greenville.
Kind of hard to describe, really, growing up as an Air Force brat and not really having much fixed roots with where I was from. I was always living in different places, so I didn't really have a good chance for building up great long-term friendships like most people that live in the same town for most of their lives do.
Yeah. And how do you think that impacted you?
I think it let me focus on being more technically minded. I enjoy working on things, and that's why I've enjoyed this whole experience getting my motor running on this trike because I bought the motor used a little over a year ago from a bike shop in North Carolina, and just figuring out how to hook all of that up and make it work and get it to operate the best for me has been an adventure.
Yeah. Yeah. So how long have you lived in?
My mom moved us here in the 70s, and
Okay.
because my parents had split up shortly before that. They still
Mm.
stayed in good touch, but I lived back and forth with my mom and dad a few times. And so, yeah, I've lived in Greenville since the 70s. I was going to technical college, and that was where I met the lady that became my wife. We dated for maybe 6 months and would have been married for 38 years if complications from rheumatoid arthritis and isolation during the pandemic hadn't finally double teamed her and took her out.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I
You
wish I
really
had
love her.
discovered recumbent. Oh yes, she put up with me really good. I wish I had discovered recumbent triking when she was still healthy because she would have enjoyed it as much as I do.
Yeah. So tell me about how did you discover recumbent triking? What made you search for it? How did you discover it?
Okay, well, interesting footnote to my life. On December 18th, 2008, I had a brain bleed. That bleed should have killed me. After they stabilized me at the hospital, they sent me to Emory in Atlanta. On January 6th of 2009, I had brain surgery to fix that bleed. That surgery should have put me in a wheelchair. And after that surgery, I went back to work February 23rd. But I do occasionally have balance problems. I can be standing, and sometimes, if walls are my friend, I'll just reach over and grab the wall because I feel my balance going. And I don't want to be on top of a bicycle and have that happen.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
being on a recumbent trike makes that real simple.
yeah.
I found out at first that the Prisma Hospital system, through one of their rehab facilities, they would provide recumbent trikes for people with different physical limitations. So I got to try one through the hospital rehabilitation center. And I
Um,
liked it so much, I noticed on Facebook Marketplace that there was I don't know what year model it was, but it was a Kent Nova trike at a local jockey lot for a flea market. It was for sale. And I thought, okay, I'll try one of those. So I bought it. It was cheap. I rode that thing so long I broke it in half twice because it's really a substandard trike.
yeah,
And then I saw in the paper someone had the performer trike that I ride now for sale used, and they didn't take good, excellent care of it. it was in good physical shape, but it needed a lot of maintenance work. Shifter cable had been ripped out, so I wound up becoming a trike mechanic by accident.
And you have a knack for learning about things and getting to really know them really well.
Right. I like figuring out how things work. And also, I turned 62 a little over a month ago, and it's amazing that I can remember this particular detail. When I was about 5, I went into a shed behind my parents' house and I found a camera. Now, at 5 years old, I had no idea the names of the parts, but I figured out, I have the vocabulary now. I figured out the button that let the film door open. I figured out the lever that was the film advance that would make gears turn inside. And then on the front, there was a lever for a shutter. And you could pull that and you could see a little wink of light through the lens. But then you couldn't make the shutter click again unless you pulled the film advance to reset the shutter. Now, mind you, I'm 5 years old and I'm figuring this out. I wanted to see how that shutter worked. Unfortunately, the flathead screwdriver that I picked up next weren't the correct tools to take that camera apart. I got it apart, but it's no way ever going to go back together again. But 52 years later, I can still tell you how that shutter worked.
Wow.
But if I go to the grocery store to buy more than 5 things and I don't write them down, it's not happening. I'm going to leave most of it behind.
Yeah, well, that's probably
I went to the store once to buy one thing, got distracted by something else, and I still don't remember what the one thing was that I went to get.
Yeah, I know that. I have been there, so.
This is beyond walking back and forth between rooms trying to figure out what you're looking for.
I know.
Although I have learned that when you're looking for something, if you make one orbit around your house, go in a clockwise direction, and if you don't see it, go back in a counterclockwise direction so that you see the other side of things that you walked past the first time.
Yes.
And I've also figured out that for me, whenever I have a technical problem, if I can find somebody that's interested in my technical gobbledygook, and if I can explain the problem to them, sometimes just explaining the problem makes the answer pop out.
Yeah.
You can't fix it if you don't understand it, and explaining it helps you understand it.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's a good rule. That's definitely a good rule. So let me come, how did you, so it looks like you had a knack for engineering and knack and right from a very early age. So that obviously started your passion into technology and network engineering. So tell me, from 5 years old, how did you get into more and more into engineering? What was your journey like?
Well, my father was a technician in the Air Force, and he worked on equipment that would go out on the flight line to work on the planes themselves. So he also liked to explain what he was working on, and on days when he would take me to his lab where he worked, he would show me how he did things and he would explain it. And I just started learning how to figure things out. I can remember he had a radio taken apart. He had the back cover open, and he was explaining to me that radio was called wireless. And I'm looking inside of the back of this radio, and I said, but aren't those wires? There were wires all over the place inside of that thing.
What did he say?
Yeah, well, he went on to explain, wireless was the part between the radio and the radio station.
Yeah.
I just have always liked to be able to explain how things work. And if I don't understand something, if I can figure it out, great. I say that every day that goes by that I learn something new is a great day.
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it looks like you have a pretty strong background in software development, right? Is that correct?
My original degree was in component level electronic repair. That was the degree that my wife and I both graduated. We got married before we graduated. And so, yeah, and it bothers me because component level electronic repair is pretty much a dead skill. When something breaks, people don't fix it anymore. Like, I like this Motorola S305 headset, but there's no way to replace the battery in it. But I did find screws, so I will be able to take that apart and replace the battery when I need to.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to wind up doing with the battery on my trike when it finally gets to a certain, how batteries get tired and quit charging properly. I'll be taking that thing apart and seeing if I can figure out how to replace the cells, maybe double the cells up for the to increase the battery life.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan. No, I believe it. I think the number of skills.
I'll call it Franken battery.
Yeah, yeah, no, I believe it. I think I've seen you in action, so I believe it. So tell me about, you and coming to your professional work. You seems to me you have worked quite a few years on Windstream and ERAD. Is that where
Right.
you?
eRAD was a medical software development environment. They did software for hospital systems. And if you've noticed recently, hospitals don't use X-ray film anymore. It's all on the computer. It's all electronic. And eRAD developed software to store the
Imaging.
yeah, the image files were DICOM was the file type. Because of medical requirements, when you have imagery like that, it has to be non-editable. But you can kind of think about it as layers in PageMaker, or not PageMaker, Photoshop.
Photoshop,
You can think of it as layers in Photoshop. So the base layer, the main image, the X-ray, the CT scan, MRI, whatever that image is, the base layer is locked. You can't make any changes to it. But a medically trained person can bring up editing software and can add layers to that where they can make notes and draw arrows and point out details. I'm sure you've been in a hospital yourself and had x-rays for something. I mean, you ride a recumbent trike. I'm sure you've had a good thump now and then.
Yeah, I know. I have had X-ray. I play racquetball, so I had, I had to get my foot X.
Right. And did their system use film or was it all electronic on the computer?
No, it was all electronic.
Yeah. And I think that's wonderful that you can do that. But over in my closet in the room that I'm sitting in, I can go pick up a small piece of tin metal that has a black and white picture on it from the late 1800s. It was something that belonged to my wife. I will always be able to pick that up and look at it whenever I want. All of this electronic stuff, how much longer before JPEG files become unviewable because nobody makes software to do that anymore? I still have the 5 megabyte backup tapes that I used with my first home computer. I still have the tape drive that ran it and some tapes that have data on it. But there's not a computer on the planet, I think, that I could find that would be able to run that tape drive so I could access that data if the tapes are even still readable. So technology changes, but I like to laugh about it. I say that I have been working in IT. I've been working in IT support for so long that I'm trained to hate computers because in over 35 years of working in IT, I've never once had to replace batteries in a pencil. And one of the truths that I figured out, you're familiar with the common definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result each time.
Yes.
Okay, so everybody knows that definition of insanity. So I have a question. With every computer that you use at home, at work, no matter where you are, how many times do you do a thing and it doesn't work? But you know it's supposed to. So you will do it again, maybe 3 or 4 times because eventually it will work, right?
Right.
So there you go with the definition of insanity. Computers make us crazy.
That's very true. That's very, very true. No, I have seen issues with the computers that they are exactly falling in that category. They make us crazy.
And you see a computer do something wrong and you call somebody over and say, hey, watch this. And you click on it and it works just fine. I had to work on a laser printer on a customer site one time. I was an HP warranty printer technician. I checked this printer out sitting on the customer's desk. I couldn't find anything wrong with it. All of the voltages were fine. Everything was perfectly normal. It just wouldn't print. I checked everything I could in that printer. And so finally I had to tell the customer, well, I don't know what's wrong. I'm just going to have to take it to the office and see if I can figure it out. So I took it to the office, again, did further checks, couldn't find anything wrong with it, took it back to the office, to customer, plugged it in, turned it on, it worked just fine. I have no idea why that printer wasn't printing. I disconnected and reconnected it to the same computer that it was there and it worked. And I told the the lady behind the desk, I said, I don't know what's wrong with this printer. Maybe it just got lonely and needed to go for a car ride.
It had a spirit, right? It had a spirit.
Right. Yeah. So my email signature ends with, I don't need to be driven crazy. It's close enough to walk.
Yes. I know.
So yeah, I have a very broken sense of humor.
I know. I can tell. I can tell. The computers, get you there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was mentioning that I had that brain surgery. After the initial surgery and rehab at Emory in Atlanta, when the rehab nurse told me that I was going to be cleared to go home, she said, until my strength and balance improved, as long as I felt like I needed to, use a walker. And without hesitation, I said, great, I'm going to paint it red and name it Johnny.
What'd you say?
I think they were glad when I finally passed rehab and was sent back home because they were getting these terrible jokes every day.
You were keeping them entertained.
Right. My wife often lamented the fact that with the brain surgery, they didn't cut out the section in my brain that caused bad jokes. But she had the same sense of humor I had.
Yeah, I can tell. You guys were
I think
like,
that's why she put up with me.
yeah, you guys were very close.
I often, when we first started dating, every time I would stop at her apartment to visit and knock on the door, she would let me in. So I said, well, hey, that was her fault. She didn't have to keep letting me in.
That's right. It was entirely her fault. I
Oh,
can
yeah.
see that.
But then there's also the thing that says never criticize your wife's choices. You are one of them.
I hope you don't.
Yeah. Are you married?
No, I'm divorced.
Oh well. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
she definitely saw something in you there and it was mutual. So
Yes, there you go. There you go. So let's talk about cycling, right? So how long have you had the Performer trike?
I could look in my Strava to tell you exactly what date, but it's been a little over a year and a half. And like I was mentioning, I had ridden the Kent trike for probably about 1,200 miles before I found the opportunity to get the Performer trike. And that was about a year and a half ago. So I've only been riding a recumbent trike for just over 2 years. And I've already been over 4,000 miles.
That's impressive. That's impressive.
Yeah, I live less than a mile from a thing in Greenville called the Swamp Rabbit Trail. That trail goes all the way from north of Greenville in a small town called Travelers Rest through downtown Greenville and then keeps going south and currently ends at a road called Verde Boulevard where they are building a bridge for the trail to go over a very busy road. And then they can continue the trail on further south to Malden.
So
So if you get curious later, you can search for the Swamp Rabbit Trail and read all about its history. There's this whole motion around here of taking old railroads, ripping up the rail tracks and paving it and turning it into walking, riding, jogging, everything. And that's what the Swamp Rabbit is.
Yeah. How long is the trail?
Less than 20 miles, because so far my longest single ride was a little over 36 miles, and we started at the Verde Boulevard end and went all the way almost to the north end in Travelers Rest, probably about 4 miles shy of that, and turned around and went back. And that was a 36.1 mile ride that day.
Yeah. So how many longest hours have you spent in a stretch on your trike?
I would say about 6 hours has probably been my longest time, out going to places. My biggest excuse for riding my trike is there are a few restaurants that are near the Swamp Rabbit Trail that I like their food. They have nice draft beers that I like to sample, different kinds. I never get the same thing twice. And I figure if I ride anywhere between 6 to 8 miles to go to one of these places, round trip, I've earned the calories to go have a nice meal and a beer.
Makes sense. Makes sense to me. So were you cycling before you started triking?
It had been over 35 years since I had ridden anything with pedals when I first sat on that Kent trike on July 2nd of 2023. And I went for a 5 mile ride. And I was thinking, I wonder if I'll be able to walk tomorrow since it's been so long since I used my legs to push pedals. And something about sitting on a trike versus sitting on a bicycle is just orders of magnitude more comfortable. I felt great and just kept going for rides every day.
Yeah. So really, it was an
Um,
introduction to cycling with the recumbent
Right. Now, when I
trike.
was a lot younger, when I lived with my dad for a while, when he was stationed at Homestead Air Force Base, which one of the hurricanes scraped that base off the earth, south of Miami in Dade County. And at that age, I hated riding the school bus. It was 7 miles to the school. So I started riding a bike so I didn't have to ride the bus. And it didn't matter time of year. South Florida, I didn't have to worry about it being too cold. I did have to worry about rain, but I would ride in the rain and be just fine. But when you get older, you don't want to get cold anymore. So I don't like riding in the rain anymore.
Yes, we're more
Shortly
sensitive.
before I met my wife, I did ride a motorcycle a lot. The coldest day of my life was Christmas Eve, 1983. I went to a place where it was still daylight when I got there. When I left, it was dark. I
Yeah.
had to go back in to borrow someone's lighter so I could go out and thaw out the clutch cable on that motorcycle. If you go online and look it up, what was the low temperature in Greenville County on that date? It was -9 that night.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah, I don't like being out in that cold.
that's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. So would you say that your using of a recumbent trike has you in your health, lifestyle, rehabilitation, medical
Oh yeah.
recovery?
You know how your doctor will hound you to exercise?
Yes.
Apparently, he must know something because when I started riding that trike, my health has improved greatly. Not near death or anything, but my resting heart rate dropped from the 80s to 60s. My blood pressure, I lost weight. I started gaining some weight back, and somebody explained, yeah, well, leg muscle memory, I lost a lot of weight. So again, apparently exercising is good for you.
Yeah. That's awesome to know. I mean, that's a good message. And then how did you discover Falco e-bike system?
There's a group that I ride with that rides on something called the Thermal Belt Trail that's in North Carolina. It goes between, it's near the Spindale area. I'd have to send you a link unless you look up Thermal Belt Trail Spindale and read about that also. But that group is mostly retirees and they all had eAssist recumbent trikes. Now, I had my Performer Trike E without a motor and was keeping up with that entire group with their eAssist every ride that I would go up there. But then I wanted to take my dog too. But when I put her trailer on that trike, I was having trouble keeping up. I just, an extra 40, 50 pounds of dog in trailer is hard to pull. So I
Yeah.
was beginning to look at getting some kind of an add-on assist to that trike. There's a bike shop in Spindale, Grumpy's Bike Shop, that he had purchased a trike that had a Falco motor on it, and he sold me that used motor. And it was, went up to the shop. It's about an hour drive for me to get to that area. So I drove up there just to pick up that motor. It was still in a box with its battery and the cable and all of its associated stuff. It had the Bluetooth adapter. So just standing in his shop, I connected to his bike shop's Wi-Fi, downloaded the BLE app, plugged that motor in to see how easy for me to connect to it. It was very easy to set up and then read through the different screens to figure out how it would set up. And it's just sitting there in a box plugged in and turned on. And so I bought it, took it home, and figured out how to install it. And I
Oh,
did make a
wow.
couple of other additional add-ons, and I can send you more information after this. But there's a company called Grin Technologies that sells a torque arm that's, I'm going to have to say, about 8 inches long, and it has a piece that with set screws that will clamp onto the flats on the axle, and it's completely adjustable. So it gives you a much longer arm for withstanding any torque that you might have in the motor. I just wasn't
Right.
real thrilled with that part of the frame for using the short torque bar that comes with the motor. Switched it over to this thing.
Okay.
And then T-Cycle was where I bought the bracket that I think you must just resell theirs through your website.
Yeah, we used to. We used to. Yeah.
Right. And so I used one of their battery mounts. And then from them, I also bought a front mini fairing windscreen just to kind of stop most of the bugs from hitting me in the chest when I'm riding at night.
Yeah. So that seems amazing. Yeah, I think we have got new setup in the mode where you don't really need the torque arms. So we have the special lock nuts that allow you to, just have the wheel and the nuts and you're good to go. So that works really well for our new installations. So let me come to the important question. So how has the Falco system changed the way you ride?
It allows me to go much further. And as I was saying, the primary reason was so I could take my dog with her trailer so I can go on rides with her, which I'm probably going to have to do this afternoon because she's being pesky right now. And yeah, it lets me ride just anywhere. And I have my annual dental checkups. It's an 11-mile ride each way. So I might try to go dental as long as the weather is go out. The doctor's office, slightly different direction and about 10 miles. My doctor thought I was crazy for riding my trike to his office. Yeah, I use my trike as opposed to my car. With the only thing is my car is a lot harder for somebody to just pick it up and throw it in the back of a pickup truck and drive away with it. That's the only danger with riding a trike. It's so small, you have to definitely make sure you lock your bike up or trike somewhere.
Yeah. So you use Trikes for a lot of things. So what kind of rides do you enjoy most? Short spins, long adventures, fitness rides? What are your week?
My average ride will be 10 to 15 miles just from day to day. Because when I go downtown, there's a place in Greenville, there's a large area called Unity Park, which has lots of good restaurants that I'll stop and eat. But that's a short ride. It's only 5 miles there. So if I'm riding there for lunch, I'll often go around downtown and a few bits more just to add distance, just so that I feel like I've accomplished something.
Right.
And you said Traveler Crest is 6 miles in the other direction. So I'll add distance, just riding around, just exploring different roads. And that's the only drawback to riding a trike is you're a little bit wider, so it's harder to ride on the side of a road.
Yes.
And I'm sure you've experienced areas where the edge of the pavement has the little dents, the rumble strip, so that if you're driving your car, it wakes you up so you don't drive off the road. When you're riding on a trike, it's so difficult. If those rumble strips are too wide, you can't have any of your wheels off the road because the right front wheel or the rear wheel is going to hit that rumble strip. And if there's no grass or pavement past that, you pretty much just have to ride in the road. I have a lot of friends that ride bikes and they don't have to worry about that. But then I don't have to worry about falling over.
Yeah. I see that. So what would you say has been your longest or most memorable ride with the Falco system?
My longest rides are routinely 20 plus miles. And I just like to have the assist for those because then I'm not so tired when I get back. I can just go out for a nice long, easy ride in for any distance. One of the things I have done a couple of times is there is only one Cracker Barrel restaurant here in Greenville. It's 14 miles away from me on the Swamp Rabbit Trail. And one morning I was like, well, that's what I wanted for breakfast. So I just hopped on that trike and rode 14 miles there and then back just to get back. And having the motor made that a little easier.
Yeah. So is that your memorable ride? What you said? 14 miles?
Yeah, probably. Some of the things I remember was the first time that I hit the north end of the Swamp Rabbit Trail that's in Traveler's Rest. It's about 8 miles from my house. I was like, is this it? It stops here? I can't go further? And then the south end, where they're building the bridge now to make it go further, that's about 12 and a half miles from my house. And that's then joins onto some roads with safe bike paths that I was able to make that Cracker Barrel breakfast ride. So, yeah. Pretty much every ride is memorable. There's so many of them. Let's see, probably the most memorable ride was when I was rushing to get back home and I knew it was about to start raining and I tried really hard to get home before the rain and I didn't make it. I got about 200 yards from the house. And that's one of the things that I remember about living in Thailand when I was 12, the monsoon season, just the incredible downpour of rain that doesn't move.
Yes.
As a 12-year-old, I remember standing outside with my dad and 20 feet in that direction, it was raining and just raining. It was just and we're just standing there. Well, that's what it was like. That last 200 yards riding home that day, the only way I would have gotten more wet would have been if I had just jumped in a lake. I was having to pour water out of my shoes and everything.
Yeah, yeah, I believe that. I believe that. So, how would you say the motor has performed for you in terms of power and responsiveness?
It's a very powerful system. It's kind of interesting. I understand the difference between eAssist and just having a motorized vehicle. Sitting at a complete stop, if I use the thumb throttle, yes, it starts to roll, but if I'm up a hill, it's not going to really do anything up a hill. It's an eAssist, it's not an eDrive. So I understand what it's designed for. And I think, as I've mentioned to you before this call, that when I started considering getting a motor, the thing that made me focus on the idea of hub drive was all of the other people in the group that I ride with have mid drives, which I also think is a funny term on a trike because it's out there in front, not in the middle at all.
Yeah.
But when I looked at that, the first thing that I realized was you lose your front shifter because
Yeah.
the mid drive motor just has the one sprocket. And then whatever that motor is doing, all of its torque is going through the top of the chain back to your derailleur in the back or your sprockets in the back. And I thought, well, that can't be good for the chain to have all of that tension on it all the time when you're using the assist with the motor in the hub and the way the Falco has the torque sensor in that cassette spline. And I hope I'm using the right words.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like I said, when I was 5 years old, I didn't know the words for the parts of a camera. And I'm only now learning all the names of the parts of a bicycle. So, but I understand how that works in that when I'm just sitting there and I'm pressing on the pedals, it's sensing torque, but there's no motion. So the motor is waiting. Once there's motion and torque, and those parameters are configurable with the app, the motor will switch on. And I can feel that. I can feel a very, very slight thump as the motor starts to help.
Yeah.
And the coolest part about that was when I took my manual 9-speed rear wheel off of my trike and put this with a matching 9-speed cassette, I didn't have to adjust anything. In my particular case, the frame and the what is that, about 134 millimeter width?
Yeah, 125, yeah. 135.
Yeah, that matched precisely. So I didn't have to adjust anything with the alignment of my rear shifting at all. And so the 10 months or so of riding without the assist and the different habits that I had learned on how to shift, I didn't have to change any of that. I could pedal exactly the same way that I'd always pedaled. And because of that little on delay that the motor keeps, so as I'm pedaling and I ease up the pressure so that I can up or down shift, the motor is still helping as I'm shifting into the other gear and then continue to pedal so that the chain switches to the next gear. And then I'm already reapplying the additional torque. And again, there's just zero impact with my shifting habits when I added that motor.
Yeah, you know, I think that's the beauty of Falco eDrive, that you don't have that stress on the bicycle performance. So,
Right.
how long of a range? I know you said you bought the system used, and the battery. How old is the battery, you think?
The guy that I bought it from told me that that battery had 200 miles.
Okay.
And the last time I looked at Strava about a week ago, I have over 1,600 miles additional. So that battery has 1,800 miles on it. And I don't have any real problems other than the self-inflicted stupidity where I forgot to lock the battery. And I was on a section of a trail and I didn't notice there was a heavy root bump across the trail. And I hit that paved bump faster than I should have, and the battery jumped out of the carrier and skidded about 3 feet off the trail into the grass and then down a slope. I had to ride about a 1/10 of a mile around to the end of the road and come back on that street at the bottom of that slope so I could get to the battery because I couldn't climb down to it from where I could see it from the trail. and everything still seems to be working fine with it, because it really only fell about 6 inches from the battery mount to the pavement and slid into the grass immediately. So nothing broke. It's just scratched up a little.
So would you say your battery is about 6 years old, 7 years old? I mean, the system you have, it says 2018, right? So I presume
It's a
your
2018
battery.
motor, so I don't know any of its history before I bought it, and that supposed 200 miles that the bike shop told me was on that existing battery. He might have been just looking at the odometer that was on it, and I know you can reset that.
Right.
So unless there's some kind of deep odometer that just, but I don't even know how well that would work to have a permanent odometer, since you have to adjust it for the circumference of your wheel every time if you do anything different. So I don't know how you would really count miles. It had a 20-inch wheel on it before. I put a 26-inch wheel on it. And as you're aware, I had a used rim, and the bike shop that put that together for me, I'm not entirely happy with how they did it, but I put 1,600 miles on those spokes. So I've certainly gotten my ride's worth out of it, but I've bought that newer rim from you and the spokes, and I will follow that YouTube video where that guy explains how to start the lacing procedure for that on a 26-inch rim. I will follow his video. Once I get it loosely assembled, then I can take it to a bike shop so they can properly tension and torque up all of the spokes so that everything's right.
So your
I've always said
battery, sorry, go ahead.
I've always said that there's a difference between knowledge and skill. I can watch people do anything and probably do it, but not with their skill.
Yeah, that's a wise words, very wise advice as well. So would you say that your battery has still a good range? You think it can do, you said the longest ride you did was about 36 miles?
36 miles. Yeah, I know that the range on that is going to be good. I tend to keep the assistance a little more aggressive, but I have tested rides where I've kept the assist level lower on purpose, and that's definitely the lower assist definitely increases the range, because I will pay attention to the battery level. Push the button on the end,
Yes.
and if I go on a heavy high speed ride, I'll use up a lot of the battery. But if I go on a nice, easy, long ride and I'm not pushing the speed, keep between 10 and 12 miles an hour, I'll use up maybe 25% of the battery on a 25 mile ride.
Wow. So you got a pretty good setup, looks like, with the motor and the battery. Looks like you're exploiting all the features of the system. So which features are your favorites?
I would say pretty much it's practically the set it and forget it options. Now, I'm sure you've seen some of my Facebook chats with other people that extol the virtue of the Bluetooth adapter and using the app to fine tune the motor. Okay, now in the section of the trail where I need to do this, and they reprogram their, and I don't really see the need for that. The 5 positive levels of assist that it has match all of my ride cases. I'm not trying to race up mountains or anything. So I like just being able to set the plus assist level to whatever I want. And when I added the regen brake assist sensor, it was a little bit of a curve figuring out exactly how that worked. And I was able to figure it out because I had a loose piece of brake cable with me, and I was able to have it all plugged in and turned on. And I figured out how the cable felt when it was moving inside of the sensor. And then when I moved the cable the right way in the sensor, I would see a little red light come on.
Yeah.
So that was how I had to figure out, okay, this is how it has to go. And that's how I bolted it all together. And if I'm on a long section of a downhill, and if I just coast, my speed can get crazy. And by crazy, I mean on that trike, before I added the motor, which does have some, we're not going to let you be too stupid features built into it. Without the motor, there's this one hill close to where I ride. Just to see what I could do, I hit over 40 miles an hour on that trike. But on that same hill with the Falco motor turned on, the Falco motor is like, "What, you idiot? I'm not going to let you go that fast." So I can see the little regen sensors start to light up when I'm trying to go too fast. And with the regen brake sensor, that's good, because if I am on a long, shallow hill, have it set so that when I just start to pull the brake lever before the front brake caliper engages, the regen braking kicks. So that will limit my speed without wearing out the brake pads on the trike.
Yeah, yeah. I think the regen sensor is something we never really supply to any of our customers. And I think, and we supply to you because we know you could handle it. But normally we know we have a regen sensor capability, but we like to keep things pretty simple on our
Right.
system.
And so, yeah, and as I understand, your newer motor has that built into it so that if you backpedal, the
Yes.
sensors can sense the spline going backwards and uses that to turn on the regen.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Which
So
is,
yeah.
yeah, so I understand how that works. Kind of like a throwback to the old days of the early bicycles and coaster brakes where you just push the pedal backwards to stop the rear wheel.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think our goal is to make things make the system as simple as possible, have the fewer components, less number of components to deal with.
Right. Well, that is one of the things that I noticed with the description that all of the controller and associated electronics to run the motor are built into the hub. So there's not an extra component you have to attach to your frame. Just the battery mount has to have somewhere to go, and then the hub contains everything else. Minus what you have for the, I prefer the wired console. I do have the Bluetooth adapter, and I can use the BLE app if I did use it like that for a while. And what I didn't like about the app was I use Strava to record my rides. So if I use the BLE app, my first real complaint was every time I turn all of that on, when I start the BLE app, I have to pair it to the motor every time. I don't understand why it can't remember. Well, this is the last motor that I was using, and I see it in range, so we'll just connect to that same motor. I don't understand why it doesn't do that. But then if I'm riding, and it may be a function of the way Android works, when I switch over to the Strava app and I'm doing all of the ride controls and that, it seems like the BLE app in the background goes to sleep. So that when I switch back to the app, it's almost like starting it back up again, and I have to pair it to the motor. And the odometer reading that it was keeping track of has reset. And so that's why I prefer the wired console.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting feedback. I've never heard of that issue before, but we'd love to investigate and see what's going on between Strava and our app. At one point, Strava and our app was actually had AND plus capability. And AND plus protocol is, now pretty much has been overtaken by BLE protocol. So I'm not sure if that has something to do with its functionality, but something to look into. So have you faced any challenges with the system?
No challenges with the system other than one self-inflicted almost disaster. I went with somebody else's recommendation, and when I first put that hub on, I torqued those axle nuts to 60 newtons.
You overtorqued them, yeah.
Oh yeah, and they were fine. But then when I took the wheel off I think I was replacing the tire to get a better. Yes, that's exactly what it was. When I got that motor with the 20-inch rim and the used 26-inch rear, they had it messed up. That had a mountain bike tire on it. So I just kept all of that together. And I really didn't like the mountain bike tread on that. It was about a 16th of an inch from touching the frame on both sides. That tire was too big for the trike. But I just rode that for a while until I finally bought some marathon. I forget which, the Schwalbe marathons. I bought a set of those. And so when I went to take that off and swap the tire out, as I was starting to torque the axle back down, I felt the threads start to give. No, I got lucky. I was able to take all of the washers out except for that small torque washer, the one that has the little bit that sticks into the axle slot. That one is still there. But taking the other washers out, I was able to get below where I had weakened the threads. And then I've now written down the 34, I think you told me, newtons is what it's supposed to be. 40? Okay, yeah. Well, I'm being cautious and not going up above 35. I don't want to do that again because I'm pretty sure that if I tried to take that motor apart to get to the axle, I would be in the same situation I was with that camera when I was 5 years old.
Right.
Might not be able to put it back together.
Yeah, that sounds good. So if you could improve one thing about the Falco system, what would it be?
I often like to technically pick apart things, but I haven't really found anything in the physical structure of how the Falco motor is put together that made me go, well, gee, I don't like this. I mean, the closest would be my using that other torque arm for that, because I do understand that if I have a catastrophic failure where the actual bolts in the frame, I don't want to break any parts of that. So yeah, I chose to over engineer that little bit myself. But even that's not a technical problem with the motor. That's a technical problem with my frame that I just wanted to be sure that I didn't stress the frame. But everything else in the motor design is fine. I would, since the newer motors have the regen braking mechanism in truly what would be called a wireless format just by backpedaling. When I bought the brake sensor with the extra little splitter cable on it, I was a little annoyed with that layout because the cable from the brake sensor to its plug is relatively short. So that splitter had to go way forward on my trike. And it would have been nice if that cable was longer.
Yeah.
And then on the splitter itself, since the cable from it shares the throttle, correct?
Yeah, it does have, yes, it shares
Okay,
the throttle.
since the throttle cable is already long enough to reach to the motor, I would have thought that the splitter would have just only needed just a few inches of cable on either side of it, kind of about the same way the Bluetooth adapter has the short
Right.
stubs on each side.
Right.
And then the brake sensor cable would have just been longer to reach to it and would have simplified where that could have been mounted up under the seat out of the way. Where it's mounted now is not ideal, but the other thing would just be cut and splice and make the cables as long as I want. But I haven't decided to express that much energy yet. I've got it all Velcro strapped where it needs to go and it rides just fine.
So I think, Carlos, we're coming to the end of our interview. I think we spent a good amount of time together. Anything else you want to share about your journey?
If there's one thing that I would like to complain about riding a recumbent trike, was that no one warned me how addictive it would be. It's like, oh, hey, this just might be a fun thing to do on the weekends. Oh, I ride that thing every day I can if the weather is half decent.
Oh, I think it's awesome. I think it's really awesome. Thank you, Carlos, for sharing this wonderful story and your experience with us. So I think when you get a chance, Carlos, if you can send us some close-up of your components, of your setup, etc., that would be great. I think we can include
do that.
I think of the close-up of the motor, the torque arm, the console, the regen sensor, etc. So we can kind of share that along with the video.
Right. Actually, I will describe one brief little mechanical problem that I'm going to have to figure out how to get around. The little plastic connectors, the three that come off of the motor, the heavy one for the battery, then there's one for the console, and then one for the thumb throttle.
Yeah.
I don't remember. One of those, the plastic has just the tiniest little split in it. So I'm either going to have to get one of those plier squeeze type hose clamps to help that joint be tighter, or figure out some way to clamp that, or if there's some way I can get just that piece of wire, I can cut and splice a new one on. Because I've read the comments some people have made in Facebook about how difficult those things are to pull apart. So
Yes.
when I pulled that cable loose and it just came right off, that was like, oh yeah, something's not right here. And that was when I looked and noticed there was a small crack in the side of it. And I've been okay with that. It hasn't fallen apart because of the way I get everything carefully Velcro strapped to the frame. But it's just one of those things where I'd like to buy an extension cable and then I can just cut off the part that I need and resolder it into place with that one.
Yeah. I also don't like the connectors. They are waterproof connectors, and they are most of our customers, once it's installed, they forget they don't have to take it apart. It's when you have to do some repair or you have to put a new component in there, then is the time you have to open the connector. So connectors are waterproof, but I think on my system, I have a small split on the connector so that I can easily take them in and out, you know, so.
Right. Now, there's another kind of connector I've seen that does have a small threaded collar.
Yeah,
Like I have power over Ethernet security cameras
Yes.
in my house, and that's how they connect. So it's just a regular Cat5e Ethernet cable, but where it plugs into the adapter, there's a small piece and then there's a threaded collar that keeps all of that watertight. So perhaps looking into one of those kinds of connectors,
Yeah.
but obviously the important thing is to stay compatible with what you've already got so you don't have to redesign everything. But I'm happy with the connectors, but like you say, once it's connected, you don't have to think about it. But yes, ultimately, when you need to replace a tire, you're going to have to disconnect all of that so you can get the rear wheel away. So that becomes a problem. And then when I discovered that I had a broken spoke about a month ago at about 14 spoke, and then a couple 100 miles or another spoke broke. And that's the whole why I'm buying the new rim and a new set of spokes so that I can, but 1,600 miles on that system, and that's the only problem. What am I complaining about?
That sounds good. That sounds good.
Right.
Well, thank you.
I'll get some pictures and send those to you on Messenger.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be great. And we should be able to get your rim and spokes hopefully on Monday.
All right.
Sounds good, Carlos. Thank you for your time. Have a wonderful rest of the Sunday.
Yeah.
Thank
Well,
you.
I do have one other quick question for you. You're from
Yeah.
India. I like jokes. So, do you have a good joke from India that would translate well into English?
Oh, I think there are several good jokes from India. I will have to search for them. I don't have it right at my fingertips, but I'll send you one.
Yeah, tell it later. For example, like a joke in English that makes sense is, why don't cannibals eat clowns? Because they taste fun. I do language because tastes funny isn't the same. But I have another question. In India, do you have dad jokes?
We have, I think, yeah. No, I haven't heard of dad jokes but that's a good
Jokes your
point.
dad tells you.
Yeah, I know.
So everybody knows what a dad joke is, right?
Yes.
What is a mom joke?
Yeah, I haven't heard of mom jokes even in the US. Are there mom jokes in the US?
But yeah, nobody really knows what a mom joke is. Well, a mom joke is dad.
Well, that is really funny.
Right. So I imagine it's really late for you right now.
Yes. No, thank you for your
I
time,
appreciate
Carlos.
you taking the time to put up with my humor, and I was glad to tell you about how much I enjoy this triking addiction I've got.
No, thank you for sharing, and I'm sure a lot of people will get encouragement from this video. So thank you.
All right. Well, thank you.
Have a good one.
You too.
Bye.